What if being born into royalty could protect you from one of the most notorious criminal investigations of the 21st century? On November 20th, 2019, Prince Andrew, Duke of York, the second son of Queen Elizabeth II and eighth in line to the British throne, sat down for what he believed would be a career-saving interview with BBC Newsnight. Instead, he delivered one of the most catastrophic performances in television history. A train wreck so spectacular that it ended his public life and exposed the darkest secret of the modern monarchy. That privilege and power can shield even the most damning allegations. This is the story of a prince, a convicted sex offender, and the global conspiracy that connected the world's elite to the trafficking and abuse of underage girls. And at the center of it all stands one question. How did Prince Andrew walk away? The story begins not with Andrew, but with Jeffrey Epstein, a man whose wealth, connections, and depravity made him one of the most infamous criminals in modern history. Born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York, Epstein rose from humble beginnings as a teacher to become a mysterious financier whose clients were never publicly identified. He accumulated a fortune estimated at over $500 million, owned a private island in the Caribbean, a mansion in Manhattan, a ranch in New Mexico, and a chateau in Paris. He flew on a private Boeing 727 nicknamed the Lolita Express, and he counted among his friends former President Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, Hollywood stars, Silicon Valley billionaires, and scientists. But beneath the veneer of wealth and influence was a predator operating an international sex trafficking ring that targeted vulnerable teenage girls. Epstein's method was systematic and horrifying. He recruited girls, some as young as 14, through a network of enablers, promising them money for massages. Once inside his properties, they were sexually abused and coerced into recruiting other girls. His longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell, daughter of disgraced British media tycoon Robert Maxwell, allegedly acted as his madam, grooming and trafficking victims. The scheme operated for decades, protected by Epstein's connections, wealth, and lawyers who intimidated victims into silence. In 2008, Epstein was finally arrested in Florida on charges of soliciting prostitution from a minor. But in a sweetheart deal that shocked prosecutors and victims alike, he pleaded guilty to just 2 state charges, served only 13 months in a private wing of a county jail where he was allowed to leave for work release 12 hours a day, and registered as a sex offender. The federal charges that could have imprisoned him for life vanished. Someone very powerful had protected him. Enter Prince Andrew. The Duke of York first met Jeffrey Epstein in 1999 through Ghislaine Maxwell, who moved in British high society despite her father's disgrace. Andrew and Epstein became close friends. Andrew visited Epstein's properties in New York, Palm Beach, and his private Caribbean island, Little St. James, which locals grimly nicknamed Pedophile Island. He flew on the Lolita Express. He was photographed at Epstein's Manhattan mansion. And most damningly, he was photographed in 2001 with his arm around the waist of 17-year-old Virginia Roberts, now Virginia Giuffre, with Ghislaine Maxwell smiling in the background. That photograph would become the most infamous image in the entire scandal. Virginia Giuffre's story is central to understanding Andrew's involvement. Born in 1983, Virginia had a troubled childhood marked by abuse. At 16, she was working at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida when she was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell. Virginia claims she was trafficked to Epstein's powerful friends for sex, including Prince Andrew on 3 occasions. The first time was in London in 2001, when she was 17. She alleges that Andrew danced with her at Tramp nightclub, then took her to Maxwell's house where they had sex. The second time was in New York. The third was at Epstein's private island. Virginia's accounts are detailed, consistent, and corroborated by flight logs, photographs, and testimony from other victims who saw her with Andrew. Yet for years, the palace denied everything. After Epstein's 2008 conviction, any association with him became toxic. Bill Clinton distanced himself. Trump claimed he'd banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago years earlier. Scientists who'd taken Epstein's money scrambled to explain themselves. But Prince Andrew continued the friendship. In December 2010, just months after Epstein's release from jail, Andrew was photographed walking with him in Central Park. The image caused a scandal in Britain. The tabloids erupted. Why was a member of the royal family consorting with a convicted sex offender? Andrew was forced to resign from his position as UK trade envoy. But the palace's official position remained that Andrew had done nothing wrong, that his friendship with Epstein was a mistake, but nothing criminal or unethical had occurred. Then, in 2015, Virginia Giuffre went public. In a U.S. court filing related to other Epstein victims, she explicitly named Prince Andrew as one of the men she'd been trafficked to. She described the encounters in detail. She provided the photograph. The story exploded globally. Buckingham Palace issued a rare and emphatic denial. It is emphatically denied that the Duke of York had any form of sexual contact or relationship with Virginia Roberts. Any claim to the contrary is false and without foundation. The statement was unusually forceful. The palace doesn't typically respond to allegations, but this was too serious to ignore. Andrew's lawyers threatened legal action. Virginia stood by her story. For years, the issue simmered. Then, in July 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again, this time on federal charges of sex trafficking of minors in Florida and New York. The evidence was overwhelming. Dozens of victims had come forward. Federal prosecutors were determined to succeed where they'd failed in 2008. Epstein was denied bail and held in a Manhattan jail. For the first time, he faced the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. And he knew secrets about some of the most powerful men in the world. What would he reveal? Who would he implicate? The world waited. On August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. The official cause of death was suicide by hanging. But the circumstances were so suspicious that even those who believe it was suicide acknowledge the questions. Epstein was on suicide watch after a previous incident, then inexplicably taken off it. The guards assigned to check on him every 30 minutes fell asleep. The security cameras that should have recorded his cell malfunctioned. An autopsy found injuries more consistent with strangulation than hanging. His lawyer insisted Epstein was in good spirits and planning his defense. Within hours, Epstein didn't kill himself, became a global meme. A rare moment of consensus across political divides that something was very, very wrong. Whether Epstein killed himself or was murdered, one thing was certain. His death was convenient for powerful people who feared exposure. But Epstein's death didn't end the scandal. It intensified it. With Epstein dead, attention turned to his enablers and associates. Chief among them, Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew. Maxwell went into hiding. Andrew faced growing pressure to cooperate with U.S. authorities. In August 2019, he released a statement saying he was appalled by Epstein's alleged crimes and that he'd only maintained the friendship because of Epstein's knowledge and connections. The statement satisfied no one. Victims wanted answers. The FBI wanted testimony. The British public wanted accountability. And so Andrew made the catastrophic decision to give a television interview to explain himself. On November 16, 2019, Emily Maitlis of BBC Newsnight conducted an hour-long interview with Prince Andrew at Buckingham Palace. Andrew's team believed the interview would clear his name and allow him to return to public life. Instead, it became a masterclass in how not to handle a scandal. Andrew appeared smug, evasive, and utterly lacking in empathy for Epstein's victims. He claimed he couldn't remember meeting Virginia Giuffre despite the photograph. He offered bizarre alibis. He said he couldn't have been at Tramp nightclub the night Virginia claimed because he was at a Pizza Express in Woking with his daughter. He claimed he didn't sweat due to a medical condition from the Falklands War, directly contradicting Virginia's account that he'd been sweating profusely while dancing with her. He expressed no regret for his friendship with Epstein beyond calling it unbecoming. And most damningly, he showed no sympathy for Epstein's victims, focusing instead on how the scandal had affected him. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Legal experts, PR professionals, and the public universally condemned the interview. A car crash, said one crisis management specialist. He's finished, said a former royal aide. Memes and parodies flooded social media. The Pizza Express alibi became a punchline. The "I don't sweat" claim was mocked mercilessly. Corporations and charities began severing ties with Andrew's patronages. Within days, over 20 organizations distanced themselves from the Duke of York. The palace was in crisis mode, and Andrew's position became untenable. On November 20th, 2019, just 4 days after the interview aired, Buckingham Palace announced that Prince Andrew would step back from public duties for the foreseeable future with the Queen's approval. The statement said Andrew continued to unequivocally regret his ill-judged association with Jeffrey Epstein. But the damage was done. Andrew was effectively exiled from royal life. No more official engagements. No more military honors. His office at Buckingham Palace was closed. For the first time in modern history, a senior royal had been forced out not by scandal involving his own behavior. Affairs, divorces, and addictions had been weathered before, but by association with a criminal and his catastrophically poor judgment in defending that association. But exile from public life wasn't the same as accountability. In August 2021, Virginia Giuffre filed a civil lawsuit against Prince Andrew in New York, seeking unspecified damages for sexual abuse. The lawsuit alleged that Andrew sexually abused her on 3 occasions when she was 17, knowing she'd been trafficked by Epstein. Andrew's lawyers fought the lawsuit, arguing he couldn't be served with papers in the UK, that Virginia's previous settlement with Epstein released all potential defendants, and that the case should be dismissed. But U.S. Judge Lewis Kaplan rejected these arguments, ruling the case could proceed. Andrew would have to defend himself in court or settle. Meanwhile, Ghislaine Maxwell had been arrested in July 2020 and charged with sex trafficking and other crimes. Her trial in late 2021 exposed the full scope of the Epstein operation. Victim after victim testified to being groomed and trafficked. Evidence showed Maxwell and Epstein had operated their scheme for decades. In December 2021, Maxwell was convicted on 5 of 6 counts. She was sentenced in June 2022 to 20 years in federal prison. Her conviction validated the victim's accounts and proved the trafficking ring was real. And it added pressure on Andrew. If Maxwell was guilty of trafficking girls, and Virginia claimed Andrew had sex with her when she was trafficked, what did that make Andrew? In January 2022, the situation reached a climax. Queen Elizabeth stripped Andrew of his military titles and royal patronages. He would no longer use the style His Royal Highness in any official capacity. He was, for all practical purposes, no longer a working royal. Days later, Andrew reached a settlement with Virginia Giuffre. The terms were confidential, but reports suggested he paid between £7 and £12 million. The settlement included a statement that Andrew regretted his association with Epstein and commended Virginia's bravery in standing up for herself and other victims. Critically, Andrew did not admit wrongdoing. He maintained he'd never met Virginia, but he paid her a substantial sum to make the lawsuit disappear. So what's the truth? Did Prince Andrew sexually abuse a trafficked 17-year-old girl? The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. There's the photograph showing them together. There are flight logs placing Andrew on Epstein's planes. There are witnesses who saw them together. Virginia's account has been consistent for years and aligns with other victims' experiences. Andrew's denials have been unconvincing. The Pizza Express alibi, the sweating claim, the inability to remember someone he was photographed with. His settlement, while not an admission of guilt, suggests his lawyers knew he'd lose in court. Yet without a criminal trial or admission, we'll never have absolute proof. Andrew has successfully avoided criminal prosecution. He's paid money and retreated from public life, but he faces no jail time, no criminal record, no legal consequences beyond civil settlement. Compare this to how the royal family treated Meghan and Harry. Meghan gave an interview criticizing the institution and was effectively exiled. Harry spoke about his mental health struggles and family conflicts. He lost his titles and funding. Their sins were words. Andrew's alleged sins were actions: association with a sex trafficker and credible accusations of sexual abuse. Yet the institution protected Andrew far longer than it protected Harry and Meghan. The palace issued forceful denials on Andrew's behalf. The Queen allowed him to use Buckingham Palace for his disastrous interview. He was only forced out when public pressure became unbearable and corporations fled. The double standard is stark. Speak against the institution and you're banished. Potentially commit crimes but stay silent, and you're protected until it's no longer possible. Consider the other players in this nightmare. Jeffrey Epstein is dead under suspicious circumstances, taking his secrets to the grave. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, but she's never revealed the names of Epstein's other powerful clients, leading to endless speculation about what leverage she might have or what deals might have been made. The other men Virginia Giuffre and other victims have named, lawyers, politicians, businessmen, have largely avoided consequences through settlements, statutes of limitations, or lack of evidence. Prince Andrew is the most prominent figure to face any accountability, and even his accountability is limited to money and reputation. No one has gone to jail for raping the girls Epstein trafficked, despite overwhelming evidence the trafficking occurred. The FBI and U.S. prosecutors continue to investigate Epstein's network, but progress is slow and secretive. Victims continue to seek justice through civil lawsuits. The public continues to demand answers about how Epstein operated for decades with apparent impunity, who helped him, and who benefited from his crimes. The conspiracy theories range from plausible to absurd, that Epstein worked for intelligence agencies and compromised powerful men for blackmail, that his death was ordered by someone he could have exposed, that video recordings from his properties are being used to control politicians and billionaires. Some of these theories may have elements of truth. Others are paranoid fantasies. But the fact that they're widely believed reflects a deep distrust of how justice works for the wealthy and powerful. What remains undeniable is that Prince Andrew's reputation is destroyed. He occasionally appears at family events. He walked the Queen into Philip's memorial service in March 2022 and appeared at her Platinum Jubilee in June, but always in a private capacity, never officially. He lives quietly at Royal Lodge in Windsor, reportedly trying to rehabilitate his image and return to public life. The chances of that are virtually zero. The Pizza Express interview is too infamous. The settlement is too recent. The allegations are too serious. He's a reminder of the monarchy's darkest instincts, to protect the institution and its members even when the evidence demands accountability. The Epstein scandal exposed uncomfortable truths about power, privilege, and justice. Rich and powerful men trafficked and abused vulnerable girls for years while authorities looked the other way. When finally caught, Epstein received a sweetheart deal, then convenient death before trial. His accomplices have faced limited consequences. The victims have had to fight for every scrap of recognition and justice. And Prince Andrew, a man born into extraordinary privilege, used that privilege to avoid testifying, avoid criminal charges, and avoid admitting wrongdoing, paying money to make the problem disappear while maintaining innocence. Perhaps the real conspiracy isn't about how Epstein died or who else was involved. Perhaps it's simpler and more disturbing. A system where wealth and connections place you above the law, where victims are disbelieved and silenced, and where institutions protect powerful men regardless of what they've done. Prince Andrew didn't kill himself in a jail cell. He's alive, comfortable, and unprosecuted. He lost his job and his reputation, but he kept his freedom. And in the end, for men like him, that's what matters most. On a quiet estate in Windsor, the Duke of York lives out his exile, protected by the crown that once celebrated him. The girls Jeffrey Epstein trafficked live with trauma that will never fully heal. And the world watches, wondering if justice will ever truly come for the powerful men who hurt them. The answer, tragically, is probably not. Because being born royal still means something. It means you can make catastrophic mistakes, surround yourself with monsters, and when the evidence piles up and the world demands answers, you can pay money, retreat from view, and wait for the scandal to fade. Prince Andrew got away with it, and the institution that protected him will survive, as it always does, while the victims are left to wonder why their truth wasn't enough. Thank you for watching this investigation into one of the most disturbing royal scandals of our time. If this story made you question how justice works for the wealthy and powerful, please give this video a like so more people can discover the truth behind the headlines. Share this with anyone who followed the Epstein case or wants to understand how the royal family protects its own, even when the evidence demands accountability. Subscribe to Crown Conspiracies and hit that bell so you never miss our investigations into the secrets monarchies tried to bury. Your support keeps these untold stories alive and ensures victims' voices are heard. What's your verdict? Did Prince Andrew get away with it because of his royal privilege? Should he have faced criminal charges? And why does the institution protect men accused of crimes while exiling women who speak out? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every one, and the best might be featured in future episodes. Coming next, Edward VIII Nazi connections and the abdication that saved Britain from a traitor king. The royals have always had dark secrets, we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next royal conspiracy.